Hey there guys, welcome back to the Doug and Racecraft YouTube channel. On this episode, we take this little girl for her first spin in almost 30 years. Okay there guys, back in the garage. It's the next day after the last video that you would have seen. Got the new carburetor, had it overnighted last night. This is where we're at currently. I was experiencing some sort of valve train knocking. I haven't quite figured out what it was yet. I think what it may be is, I'm hoping it's a collapsed lifter. I'm hoping that's all it is. This rocker arm right here is really loose. So I was gonna take the intake manifold off and see if the lifter started to round itself off on the camshaft. That'd probably be the smart thing to do. So I think that's what we're gonna do. That's probably the best idea. Okay guys, I bet you're wondering how we got to this point. So it turns out that we did wipe out a lifter. Well, actually a couple lifters. This is the worst one. This was the one that came out of cylinder 2 or 3, whatever cylinder it was that had that loose rocker arm. As you can see, she is wiped. This is one of the 2 or 3 good lifters that was left, and it's really still not even in that great a shape. This is the worst one of the bunch. As you can see, the rest of them aren't really in much better shape. So this is the lobe that was bad. This is the new camshaft that I got. Same camshaft, just for a 302 instead of a 351. The cool thing that I was gonna call comp cams to make sure that I had the right camshaft, that I had the right firing order this time around, but just based off of having 2 camshafts next to each other, this tells me in and of itself that it is a different firing order. The way you can tell is, this is for cylinder 1, you can tell they're in the same spot because cylinders 1, 2, 6, and 8 stay the same for the new firing order versus the old firing order, and cylinders 3 and 7 and 5 and 4 swap. So you can see that the lobes are in the same spot for cylinder 1, but for cylinder 5 it's 180 off. You can see I got them lined up the same way. Just something cool. I've never seen 2 of the same camshafts but different firing orders next to each other, so it's just something cool to see. So what we're gonna do, I got the old motor cleaned up, went through some of the bearings, they all looked fine. It didn't put a ton of metal through the oil, which is a good sign. So all we're gonna do is, I ordered a can of assembly gel from Comp Cams that didn't come with the camshaft. For whatever reason, they only send you the chintzy little pack assembly lube, which I wish they would send you more, because then you might avoid problems like this. So what we're gonna get the new camshaft all lubed up. They want you to wipe it down with mineral spirits or a solvent-based cleaner first. Then we will get the camshaft installed and we'll pick it up from there. Okay guys, I may have cheated a little bit, but we're ready to put the engine back in the car. I just finished up some of the accessories and things like that. Nothing you haven't seen before. Just figured I'd get it done really quick off camera so this video isn't nearly as long as the last one was. Put the camshaft in. I used an overabundance of this stuff this time. Obviously ordered another bottle of it so I had enough. This is just really thick, really viscous stuff so that it protects the camshaft and the lifters before it sees oil pressure from the motor. So very nice cheap insurance policy. I should have done this last time, but hindsight's 2020, so we're gonna do it right this time and we'll keep going. Got the water pump, timing cover, oil pan, all that stuff back on, no big deal there. Bell housing back on, same clutch pressure plate flywheel you saw last time. So let's go ahead and get Stab back in the car. Okay guys, as you can see, made a lot of progress. Yesterday I came up here, got the intake manifold put back on, and put the new radiator in. This is the new radiator. Nice 3-core aluminum radiator, 2 12-inch fans, and a shroud to match. Got it on eBay, nothing special. It is a 3-core radiator, pretty solid deal. The intake manifold I got on, had to come back off because as usual, something had to fight me. And on the other side, it was leaking, just barely dribbling out from the water passage on the cylinder head. Took it back off, added a little bit of silicone around the gaskets, put new gaskets in it, and put the intake manifold back on, let it dry overnight, came back up here, filled it up with water. We got the AMSO braking oil in it right now, just standard SAE 30 weight, high zinc formula. I am an AMS oil dealer, so I get this stuff at wholesale costs, not what you'd see at the store. Basically the way this is gonna work, what Comp Cams recommends and what AMS oil also recommends, We'll break the camshaft in. We'll run it for 20 to 30 minutes, varying RPM above 2,000, like everybody says. We'll shut it off, let it cool all the way down. I'll change the oil. Got the new carburetor on there. This is a Brawler 650. It is a double pumper, has a secondary metering block. Pretty nice deal, just enough to get us by for now. Okay guys, I forgot to record an intro for this part of the video. My dad came up and helped me get the engine running. It's just nice to have a second person there when you're doing something like this, just to catch things that you wouldn't normally see on your own. Okay, so I won't bore you guys with the entire break-in procedure. The way we ended up doing this was the way that ComCams now recommends to break in their camshafts, which they call the 10-10-10 method. Basically, you run the engine for 10 minutes, let it cool down for 10 minutes, let it run for 10 minutes, let it cool down for 10 minutes, and then finally let it run for 10 minutes, let it cool down again, change the oil, and it should be broken in after that. Okay guys, so as we saw, had spent a little bit of time taking the motor back out of the car, putting new camshaft in it, making sure that was all good to go. The thing that you guys need to keep in mind is that the part of the video that you just saw and now, that was about a week and a half's worth of work. I had at least 60 hours, probably closer to 70 hours in the car, getting it to the point that it's at now. You know, in your head when you're thinking of all these things, you can just, the things that you think of off the top of your head is only part of what needs to be done. So let's say I thought it would take me 2 hours to get the suspension figured out. With my luck and the way things usually go for me, it took me closer to 3 or 4. So, and that snowballs, it stacks. Just some of the things that I did off camera that you guys won't get to see. I had to swap out the lower control arm bolts in the back because those bolts ended up getting wiped out when we took them out originally. I installed the rear sway bar, ended up using the rear sway bar off that 95 GT. I tightened up all the suspension in the front. I had to paint the headlight rings and install the headlights and wire up the headlights for everything like that. I made the mid-mounted exhaust hangers that the car should have. I had to make all the vacuum lines for the PCV and the vacuum brakes. Painted, reinstalled all the exterior trim, as well as installing all the body side moldings. I also had to go back in and tidy up all the wiring. One thing that I also ran into was the key would not shut the car off anymore, and I couldn't figure it out as to why it was doing that. Spent probably 8 to 10 hours. I spent a whole day on Wednesday figuring out what that would have been. I couldn't figure it out, so I ended up having to wire in a switch to shut the ignition off, just so I could shake it down for you guys. What that ended up being was the 2 wires that come into the car. One is a switch 12 volt, one is a constant 12 volt. The mice had eaten through the lining of those 2 wires, and I didn't see it when I had the dash harness out. So those 2 wires were touching. So after the car would start, a circuit for the switch 12 volt would have constant 12 volt, which would not cut power to the ignition box unless you unhooked the battery using the battery cutoff switch that I installed. I also installed the stock springs again because those aftermarket springs, those Tokiko ones, they, for some reason, even though the springs were pretty close to the same height and the same size and everything, the car sat probably 2 inches lower in the back and the wheels rubbed on the body. And in the front, the car was leaning back towards the driver's side rear, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought that maybe the car was twisted because the radiator support took a pretty decent hit. I'm sure you guys have seen that at some point in the videos already. I was able to put all the stock springs back in, and it worked itself out. I think the problem was that rear springs don't sit flat like the stock ones do, so if you don't have them clocked the exact same side to side, one will sit lower than the other, effectively making the rear end squat on one side versus the other. All right guys, getting ready to take the 82 GT for our maiden voyage. Obviously this is just a shakedown run. We know it's not gonna be perfect first time around, just so long as it runs, drives straight, and doesn't overheat. That's all we're looking for here. Mainly just looking for the problems that we have to shake down, hence the term shakedown. So, bump her a couple times because it's a Ford. refresher on everything that we did. We took a 1988 roller motor, put a comp camshaft in it, 4-barrel manifold, Edelbrock intake manifold, long tube headers, 1 5/8" tubes with a 3-inch full exhaust, T5 with some mild upgrades, and an 8.8 with 355s, as well as all new suspension. The only thing we reused was the control arms and the springs. So, should drive like a brand new car, I would think. We live on a highway, so all we're gonna do, it's later in the day, so it shouldn't be too busy. We'll just go up a couple miles, turn around, and come back. Vibration. This drive shaft had a bunch of weights on it, which for a tube that's only 3.5 inches around, to have 5 ounces of weight on it's quite a lot. So we'll probably take it to the local drive shaft shop and have them balance it. We got good brakes from what I can tell. Sounds like the gears in the rear end are whining a little bit. I did notice the backlash was kind of loose with those, so maybe we'll have to re-gear it at some point. Drives pretty straight for doing an at-home alignment with a tape measure. Just using my good old high booglies. I do love about this car so far is that exhaust that we made for it. It's just that camshaft on a stock long block and some headers really sounds good. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but here's a quick clip of that for you guys. So make sure if you guys did like these videos, you go ahead and like and subscribe. It really does help get some traffic to the channel, as I've said before. Subscribe if you do want to find your way back for more good videos in the future. We're going to take a couple videos off the 82 GT. We're going to start working on this 1998 Cobra right here with the caddy swap that I told you guys about before. One thing I did forget to mention is that I will make separate videos for a lot of the stuff I just talked about, mainly like the headlights and things like that. There really aren't any videos on YouTube. There's 1 or 2 maybe about that style of LED headlight in a Fox body Mustang. So I'm gonna make a video for that, and then we'll make a couple smaller videos off of some other things that I did along the way. So with that being said, I think we've made a lot of good progress on this car, gave this car a new lease on life, basically redid everything to make it run and drive like a new car. Still got some things to shake out, and you guys will see that in upcoming videos. Y'all take care now.